And I think this one truth is going to be helping so many leaders, so many athletes, so many coaches, so many people in so many different ways. And it's just time for this message, and it's time for me to share it.
Well, I'm so excited for the release of the book. Welcome back to another episode of The Burn. I am Ben Newman, and you know how we do this every single week. We're going to bring you a story of an athlete, an entertainer, a celebrity, people performing at the highest possible level who understand that why and purpose is not enough. It's so significant, but it's the burn that actually ignites why and purpose every single day that then causes you to be disciplined in your action on the days that you don't want to do it, and most specifically after you win. Today's episode is so special. You talk about the burn, because I've learned a few things from this man over the last 15 years, but what he has articulated in his new book, The One Truth, is going to revolutionize how teams in business and in sports show up, how they think, and how they drive their disciplines. I just want to give one disclaimer. If you want the backstory of Jon Gordon and I, our relationship, him leading me to Christ, him empowering me to be an author, him helping me stop making excuses in my life, you better go back to the other episode. This is not that episode. This is the episode to highlight, because I am so excited for the release of The One Truth. And I've read damn near every single one of his books. Training Camp is my favorite. Energy Bus is where the connection began. But Jon Gordon, welcome back to The Burn. And The One Truth, it is your best work yet. I can't wait to dive in. Welcome, Jon.
Ben, so great being with you. Great being your friend. And, when you were talking about that with, your background, all the teams and organizations you work with, I was thinking, like, as you were reading it, like, were you getting ideas? Was it making you think about the coaches you work with, the teams you work with, the athletes? Were you thinking, okay, this is something I can help them with, and this is going to help them in a big way when they understand how thoughts work, how mindset really works, how oneness and separateness actually plays out in every aspect of our life? Even the burn, like you talk about the burn. Pavarotti was asked about his incredible discipline for his craft and what made him so great. And he said, everyone thinks it's discipline. He said, it's not discipline, it's devotion. He was so devoted to his craft, it drove his discipline. I would argue that the burn is actually driven by love. And when you love it and you want to be great at it, discipline is a lot easier. It's like you're flowing with the water. You're surfing and riding the wave rather than swimming upstream, which is what it feels like when you don't love it. Discipline is hard. No one has to make Tom Brady go work out and train when he was trying to be the best. When you want to be the best, you want to actually go and be disciplined. When you're loving doing what you do, you love shooting, it's easy. It's when you don't love it that makes it hard. So did it make you think?
Here's what I loved. It was the immediate, and you mentioned the teams. You led me to Christ. And so I'm reading the book, right? And I'm reading it was in book one. And one thing for all the readers, what I thought was really unique, it's broken up into 3 books. And Jon actually says at the end of book 1, like, you really want to dive into this, go to book 2. Otherwise, you can stop here. Of course, I'm going to keep reading. But in book 1, the particular page that I was on, I ended up highlighting it. And 2 hours later, one of my players in the NFL calls me. And boy, was he operating in a low state of mind. And I literally take pictures from the book and I send it to him. He's like, dude, that's beautiful. That's what I needed to read. I said, that's from Jon Gordon's new book. You're going to love the book. And it immediately helped him. And I think that's what I love about the book. And if you could talk about high state of mind versus low state of mind, because the simplicity of it, I think we overlook. And when I put it right into his face, he was like, oh my gosh, I've got all this clutter that I've created, and I have control to actually limit the clutter and get clear again. It was amazing how it unfolded.
Yeah, when you're in a low state of mind, you have a lot of clutter, a lot of thought, a lot of worry, fear, anxiety, stress, and doubt. And so that's a low state. High state of mind is a lot of clarity, a lot of focus, a lot of positive energy, a lot of confidence. Like when you're in the zone moment, you're feeling the zone, you're experiencing the zone, that is the ultimate high state of mind experience. So we have low states and high states. So when a circumstance happens in your life, if you're in a low state of mind, it bothers you. The same circumstance can happen. And if you're high state, it doesn't. You rise above. You move on. You get the rejection in sales in a low state. You're now questioning. You're thinking. You think something's wrong. You're saying my career's over. I'll never hit my numbers in those days. When you're in a high state, you're like, oh, I got a rejection. All right, next call. I got this. It's going to happen. As an athlete, you're in a low state of mind and you make a mistake. You're now thinking about that mistake. Revved up thought, more clutter. You get a lower and lower state of mind. If you're in a high state, you make the mistake. You're like, all right, next play. I got this. And so it's never the circumstance. It's never the event that's happening. We often look at the event and we think the event has power over us. The truth is, we have power over our circumstance because our state of mind will determine how we respond in that circumstance. We've often heard about, respond to the events in your life. E plus R equals O, or E plus P equals O is the formula I use. But really, it's our state of mind that determines how we respond. So once you understand this and you realize, okay, I'm on the roller coaster of life, I'm on the roller coaster of thought, there are going to be ebbs and flows of low states and high states. So the key is when your player is in a low state, or that salesperson's in a low state, or you're a leader and you got a team member, or you're at home and your kids. By the way, if your kids are in a low state, you do not want to be in a low state with them. Low state and low state do not work. Coaching staffs. Hey, coach, you have to be in a high state to deal with a low state player. I was Zooming with the Cowboys, teaching this whole thing that's in the book now to the Cowboys coaching staff. And they said, John, how do we help our players get to a high state of mind? I said, you've got to get to a high state of mind. When you're in a higher state, you'll help your players be in a higher state. But going back, you're going to be on this roller coaster. You're going to have the ebbs and flows. And when you're in that low state and you feel like, you're going down this roller coaster, you want to jump off often. And the key is to not jump off, to realize there's going to be ebbs and flows of low states and high states. But when you're in that low state, nothing's wrong. Nothing's broken. Stop thinking something's wrong. Just stay on the roller coaster. And so often we ride the wave back up to a higher state of mind. And book 1 within the book explains a lot of that, as well as how to elevate your state of mind and also what causes your state of mind to go down in the negative thoughts. And that's the big thing, Ben, as you know, so many people don't realize how negative thoughts affect them and make them feel. And this explains it. And this gives visuals. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. And what I love about this is it helps so many athletes. The ones I've shared this with, the coaches I shared this with all last year, I never had more conversations than I've had since sharing these ideas. And I want to give credit to this guy, Garrett Kramer, who actually taught me about low state of high state of mind. He's the one who taught me about the clutter and the clarity. And once I saw it, it really helped me. And then I was able to teach others. What I've been able to also explain is how this all ties into the one truth, and how low state actually has to do with separateness and high state has to do with oneness, which we'll get to, I'm sure, later in the talk.
Well, what I remember is last July, walking with you down the beach in California. I come to meet you at your place in Malibu, and we had to go for a walk because you knew you were taking me for the best cheeseburger of my life. So we had to get a little walk in before we get there. And you were so energized over all these years of knowing you. I felt a different level of intensity and energy hearing you talk about it. And you were citing all the examples. I just spoke to this quarterback. I just spoke to this team. The call with the Cowboys had just happened. It was bang. And everybody was just being pulled to it. And that's what happened for me. I was pulled to it. I loved it. I couldn't wait for the book to come out. And so now reading the book, getting an advanced copy, it's so hard to put down. And there's 2 examples of teams you've worked with that I want to cite. The first one I'd like to unpack, high state of mind, low state of mind, is with the Miami Heat. And then the second one in book 2, when you really start to dive into oneness, I'd like to talk about Clemson football, because love and oneness have been so important to your relationship with Dabo Sweeney. But if we talk about what the Miami Heat just did, the way that I interpret it, reading the book, watching the finals, and yes, they fell short of the result that they wanted. But this was an 8 seed of a bunch of guys that were, when you turned on the TV and listened to the announcers, like, these guys are terrible. And so a low state of mind would have been, this is the way I interpret it, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. A low state of mind would have been the athletes listening to the clutter, listening on Twitter. I wasn't drafted. They tell me I'm terrible. And you build up all of this clutter, which causes you to not have focus to perform. Instead, because Eric Spoelstra, and I know you're not going to take credit, but you've been going there for like 10 years, championships with him. You had a lot of building a relationship with their culture has become so important that their culture actually moves them to a high state of mind to operate on the things that are most important. So literally I'm watching this going, okay, here's God again. I'm reading the book and I'm watching this series and watching what the Heat did in this playoffs. That has to make you feel so good to see those teams who don't just learn these lessons from you, they actually apply it, and then they end up in the finals again. And they're one player away, which maybe they go get them, from winning another one. But what are your thoughts on that?
What makes me more excited is the fact that you can watch a team, and now since reading the book, you see how this plays out. Like you now reading this, see how these ideas play out. Because once you see it, you can't unsee it, and you'll start to see it play out in your teams, your organizations, your family. It will make you think differently. This book will make you look through a different lens, and you become like a Jedi. You start to see things so much more clearly and understand what is going on. We were at dinner with PJ Fleck, myself, Brian Slipka, his wife, PJ's wife, Heather, and my wife, Catherine. We're all to dinner, all six of us. And PJ's talking about a situation, and my wife had just read the manuscript. And my wife goes, oh, that makes sense. He's looking outside instead of inside, so that's why that's happening like that. I go, you read the manuscript, didn't you? She goes, I did on the way here. I'm like, I knew it. She was literally able to help this coach by reading the book and explain what was going on. When you're looking at the circumstance and you give that circumstance power, or you think that circumstance has power over you, it affects you. You look at the crowd. You see the noise of the crowd. You hear the boos or the cheers. And that crowd can actually affect you in a good way or in a bad way if you let it. You can also deal with situations where there's expectations, and you can allow those pressure and expectations to affect you because you're looking at the expectations of others and saying, I got to live up to those expectations. Those are all external focused. The key with the Miami Heat and other teams, when they look inside, they're so much more powerful. We're not looking outside, because outside is just noise. And guess what? Djokovic takes those boos when he hears boos and actually believes that they're cheers. He makes the meaning different. It's just noise that our brain is interpreting, and we give meaning to what we hear, and you can assign meaning to whatever you want. And so he's assigning a new meaning when he hears a sound. So it's really never the circumstance. It's never the sound. It's knowing we always create from the inside out. Going to Clemson, they created an inside out culture where the power's on the inside. Wherever we go, we're Clemson. Whoever we're playing, we're Clemson. We don't care who we're playing. It's our game. It's what we do. It's how we show up. It's the energy we bring. It's the power we have inside of us. And that's the whole coffee bean message as well. The power is inside of you. That's why the coffee bean message is so powerful. Carrot, egg, and coffee bean. The coffee bean transforms the environment. And you do as well. And the Heat culture, I would argue, the only reason why it works in what you're saying is because culture is the living, breathing essence of what an organization values, believes, thinks, says, and does. So the culture is only powerful when it's coming from within your organization, within your team, and within each person. So when the culture is being lived from the inside out, that's power. And trust me, I am not the reason. It is Eric Spoelstra. It is Pat Riley. Do I give them language? Yes, that they could use and tap into. Have I given them ideas? Yes. Have they used the 4 C's of communication, connection, commitment, caring? Yes. Have I talked to them about positive leadership, being a united and connected team? Have I worked with Eric and his staff? Because he said, you know what, Jon, come down here, help us become a stronger team as a leadership team so we can better serve our players. See, a stronger team inside to help their players inside the locker room so they win on the court. To me, that's a differentiator right there. You have a coach and a leader willing to do it, wanting to do it, and having success while they're doing it. So it's exciting to see, but I always go with the leader because the leader leads from the inside out. You know, I know that, Ben, I joke because I was speaking to the Colorado Rockies during spring training this year. And man, when I spoke, I fired them up. I taught them high state, low state of mind. And then they go and play their game. It was the best spring training game they've had all spring training. They are crushing the other team. Guy hits a 3-run homer. Clint Hurdle is there. He's an advisor to the owner and the GM. They're there as well. I said, Clint, high state of mind, Clint. High state of mind. He goes, Jon, that guy who just hit the home run, he speaks Spanish. He didn't understand a word you said. So I know it's never the talk. It's always the energy, though. It's the energy. It's the burn, right, that you bring. But it's the energy. It's always the leadership, the culture, the teamwork, and the mindset, and how they execute day in, day out. And yeah, you see it play out. But I will tell you, towards the end of that game, with the Miami Heat, with Denver. I saw them change. Their body language changed. It was like those last few minutes, they
Yeah.
almost knew it was over in their mind. It was over before it was over. I saw the language on their bodies. I saw how they were acting. I saw a guy made a mistake and he was like, and he felt defeated in that moment. And then there was Denver, one united team. Now the Heat were united. You could tell they had become a stronger team, but not as strong as the Nuggets. The Nuggets, there was something unique and special about that team. And I know you work with Porter. You saw it firsthand. Like the oneness of that team was more powerful than a team that was very connected, the Heat, but just not as one.
It really was an amazing series, and both teams really do carry so much of that uniqueness. One thing I want to highlight, I want to give everybody a guarantee, and then I want to talk about actual oneness in Clemson. This will be Jon's 28th best-selling book, so I probably don't need to do this, but I'm going to do it. You have got to get this book because here's why. It wasn't just the words, it was the images. And I think a lot of times somebody can write a really great book, but somebody's more of a visual learner. I remember walking down that beach in Malibu, and Jon's like, I get on the whiteboard and I draw, and I could see what he's drawing, and then now I see it on the pages of the book, and as you go through the book, there's the evolution of the two circles that show as you get busy in the low state of mind, less busy, less dots in the high state of mind. I don't want to give it away, but then as he progresses, he teaches it different ways with different words, but it maintains the visuals. These visuals and the words are so powerful. I will give you your money back if you buy the book and it doesn't help you or your team drive performance. So you just tell me if you don't like the book and I will give you your money back. Like everybody listening, you better go buy the book, The One Truth. So oneness, Clemson football, another one. National championships culture. I always go back to because I love it. I've loved watching you build your relationship with Dabo Swinney because it's really an amazing relationship. I remember that first championship they win and he talks about love. And then you move, well, first you hear what he thought about the manuscript and what he thinks about oneness and his testimonial about the book. And then you get into the book and you start talking about oneness and you start talking about love. How important is that for you in all of your work? Please highlight, the Clemson relationship because I think it's powerful. But that's really become a core belief for you in all of your work, hasn't it?
Oh, love is everything. And it's not my belief or my theory. Love is the most powerful force in the universe. And we are much more powerful with love than fear. And love casts out fear. And love is inside out. It's the love that you have within you, the essence within you that you share that makes you a powerful force in this world. And Dabo exudes love to his players. He is all about love. The year they won the national championship, that first year that I was with them, he said his word all year was love. And he told his players our love for each other was going to be the difference. Listen to the Nuggets. They were talking about the love they had for each other and the teamwork and the bonds and the trust and the relationships. So it's all about the bond. It's all about the trust. And love is so powerful, one, because it casts out fear. But as I say in the book, also, it creates connection. So when there's love, there's connection. And when there's connection, there's what? Oneness. And in that oneness now, there's connection. And now you have more clarity. If you've ever been in the zone state, we're just flowing through life and having a great day, everything is so clear. Your thoughts are clear. You're seeing clearly. It's like nothing go wrong. So you have this clarity. That then breeds confidence. So when you have a lot of clarity, there's a lot of confidence. If you're a baseball batter and you're swinging, you see that ball and it looks like a grapefruit, man, you know you're in the zone. You know you have clarity, and then you have so much more confidence. And then from confidence, you have courage. So you're more confident. Now you have courage to go for it. And love is what creates all of it. So you must first be focusing on love. And I see too often athletes, coaches, leaders, salespeople, business people, you name it, especially teenagers. They're so full of fear today. Fear of the outcome, fear of failing, fear of not living up to their potential, fear of not living up to what people expect on social media because they're looking outside. Social media is the ultimate act of looking outside. And when we do that, we become weaker and weaker and weaker because we're being dominated by fear and the expectations of others. And then as a result of that, we're paralyzed. As a result of that, we lose our courage. As a result of that, we feel divided. Fear divides and make us feel separate. The root word for anxious means to separate and divide. So when you're anxious, you actually feel separate and divided. Negative thoughts separate and divide you, and fear divides you. So what unites you? Love. It's the antidote to fear. So instead of worrying about the outcome, I'm going to love competing. I'm going to love the battle. I'm going to love the moment. That's what Dabo brings to his team. Guys, love the battle. Love showing up every day with your teammates and competing in the moment. Stop worrying about the outcome. Just love the battle. And if you do that, you're going to perform at a higher level. Ben, when you're speaking, I guarantee you've been on stage before, and there have been moments, because I've had these moments where you worry about what the audience is thinking in that moment.
Sure.
Yep, I've been there. Are we at our best in that moment?
No.
What? When we're loving it and loving the moment and loving the audience. Pavarotti said everybody wants the audience to love them, but I love the audience. You see, when we're loving what we're doing in the moment, that's when we're at our best. That's when we're most powerful. That's when we feel alive. That's when we feel oneness and we feel this incredible connection. So I've been sharing this a lot with athletes. Love it, don't fear it. Love the battle. It's my number one strategy. It's so simple, but it works. I gotta tell you, I had a minor league hockey player full of fear, hadn't scored a goal in 6 games, struggling at his end. I taught him this book before the book was even out. When it wasn't,
Yeah, it's in the book. Yeah.
I taught him this. I said, so what do you got to do now? He goes, I just got to love playing again. I just got to go love competing. All of a sudden he does that, scores 6 goals in 3 games, gets called up to the NHL, and has a goal in each one of his first 2 NHL games and has been in the NHL. So it's been incredible to see his journey and so many other journeys. But let's also look at a suicidal teenager struggling with life, thoughts coming at them, being bombarded. They think those negative thoughts are from them. And once I teach them their negative thoughts are not coming from them, because who would ever choose to have a negative thought? And that's in the book. You can read more about that, understand that. Once the teenager understands that, and I've done this now with a bunch of teenagers, everything changes. They stop beating themselves up. They stop living with fear and shame and guilt. And they start moving forward with, again, love and clarity, understanding the truth of where thoughts are coming from and how to have more positive thoughts. And just by understanding that, man, everything shifts. I got a call from the parents a day after speaking to this teenager who was suicidal. That's in the book as well. And they said, what did you do? He's great. He's normal. He's fine. I said, I just told him the truth. Amazing. And I reached out to him just recently. It's been over a year now. How you doing? Doing great, Mr. Gordon. High state of mind. Best feeling in the world, as you know, to shift someone's thinking. And when you read this book, you're going to shift. When I've been teaching it, the coolest thing is to be on a call, teaching it to a college, a professional athlete, or even a college or a high school player, and then watching them, literally watching them. And as I'm talking to them, you see the light bulb go off, you see the shift, and boom, completely different after that.
I'm going to put you on the spot here, because this just resonated with me when you said teaching. I'm actually going to say coaching. And you have challenged me over the last 15 years in so many different ways. Once again, you got to go back to the other Burn episode to hear more about that. But I always love how you challenge me, because it always comes from a place of love, and it's always seeking the truth for me, which is really what this book does for the reader. But I know a lot of your books, leadership books, or you think of Row the Boat with PJ Fleck, you've co-authored with some really amazing leaders and coaches. But in this book, The One Truth, I would say more than any other book of yours that I've read, I read it hearing your voice as a coach. And I know you've never referred to yourself as a coach, but I've been telling people, I'm like, you know what? Jon Gordon is a coach. Jon Gordon he doesn't call himself a coach. And you have an event coming up with Patrick Lencioni on November the 2nd. By the time we release this, it's probably going to be sold out, but I'm so excited for that event and for some of what you're moving to, because the coaching voice that I read off the pages of the book is the coaching voice that's needed in those audiences, that's going to fill your first mastermind group, which I'm holding you accountable and I'm letting the public know it's coming. And I loved hearing your coach's voice, which I felt on the beach that day. It went on the pages of the book. And now people are going to see it live in Dallas on November 2nd with Patrick Lencioni. But the coach's voice that you're now using, and you can tell me it's not, but I'm telling you it is. How important is it, the one truth for you, writing this book, to speak with that voice, which may be your greatest voice of impact yet?
It's everything. It's everything. And you know, it's funny as you're telling this, I got this cat right here that's trying to bother me and trying to lower my state of mind as I'm talking. And I'm like, you're not going to affect my state of mind right now because I'm staying positive. And so again, it's an example of circumstance. How do we allow the circumstances to affect us as I'm trying to teach this and share this? But yes, as a coach, it really brought out the coach in me right in this book. I feel like I'm a teacher and I'm a coach and I'm teaching and coaching you with this material. And it's raised my level, my game to a whole other level. I feel a new energy, a new passion, a new drive. When the Energy Bus first came out, I was teaching that for years. That book, as you know, sold millions of copies. It put me on the map. But this is like the first time I felt that way since the Energy Bus. I feel like that marked my beginning of my career. And this is like my new beginning of my new career with this message and voice, because this is like nothing I've ever taught before and shared. It does incorporate a lot of the principles in the other books, and it also explains a lot of the principles in the books, right? So that's the key. So it explains it a lot. But the thing is, I love sharing this because people need to understand the truth. How can you live a life right now with fear and anxiety and stress and doubt, which so many people are? How can you live that way and be your fullest of who you're meant to be? You can't. So you need to live with these principles and practices that we're talking about in this book and the understanding to be able to do it and accomplish it. So it's essential. So then we're not meant to go through life anxious. We're not meant to go through life fearful and stressed and worried all the time. It's become normalized. So many people are feeling this way that it actually has become normalized, that we are now accepting it as normal. And I'm here to say, no, it's not normal. Is it okay to be that way? Of course, we all have down moments. We all have low states of mind. We all will feel anxious at times. And there'll be moments we even feel depressed. I have dealt with depression. So I don't judge anyone. But I need to help you get to that higher level to help you understand that you're not meant to live that way. You're meant to live with power and peace and joy and love and connection and feeling confidence and having courage and going after the life that you truly want, that you're meant to create. That is our power. And it is our God given power that he gives us to be able to do it. Like, God doesn't want you to be timid. He wants you to be selfless, but not timid. He wants you to be humble, but not timid. He wants you to be confident going after your dreams that he's placed in your heart to live the life that he has called you to live. So yes, it brings out my greatest voice. And it's wild doing this event with Pat in November. It's been cool to see, like, we have this event. We're almost sold out, literally already, and the event is in November. And that was a leap saying, hey, we're going to have a high ticket priced event. Will leaders want to come? And we have some of the greatest leaders on the planet coming from all around the country, coming to this event with me and Patrick Lencioni. It's a full day event, just one day. And it's us just sharing and talking and interaction amongst the audience. We want them to interact. What works for you? You're a great leader of this company. You're a big leader in this industry. What are you doing? How are you doing it? It's going to be an incredible dynamic event. And that was me saying, all right, you know what? I got to step up into what I'm here to do. And you have been challenging me for a while to do that. And so I appreciate you, because
Finally.
I've spoken on all these different, big stages, all these audiences, but for some reason, now what I realize is it's about me bringing leaders together, oneness, great leaders together who are going to make an impact in this world. And I'm not playing small anymore. I got to work with incredible leaders so that I can help them have more influence, more impact with their organizations, their teams, and also with their families. As you know, if you don't have a connected family, if you don't feel one at home, you're going to feel weak out in the world. And so you've got to actually have a stronger team at home, and you got to build that team at home. So for me, I'm now realizing and recognizing my voice with the leaders at this next level. And I think this one truth is going to be helping so many leaders, so many athletes, so many coaches, so many people in so many different ways. And it's just time for this message, and it's time for me to share it.
Well, I am so excited for the release of the book. We will make sure that there will be links for everybody to immediately purchase the book. And remember, I will give a guarantee if it does not help you in your life. But I hope you listened that there's 3 books, and you're going to be challenged and encouraged to learn through the book, which is comprised of the 3 books. And so you're going to dive into high state of mind and low state of mind, and in oneness, and in the one truth, and in love, and your relationships and everything that you do. But here's what I want to encourage you to do. If you felt Jon's energy when I just said the coaching, like he took it up a notch, that's what you're going to feel on the pages of this book. And what you're going to be equipped with, it may not just be for you. It's somebody you know that's going through suicide. It's going to be somebody that you know who's an athlete that needs help getting to the next level. And there's words that might help you help them get there. Maybe it's a child, maybe it's a loved one, maybe it's a colleague in a business environment where you haven't known how to express it to them. This book is going to equip you with what you need to help lead others and to be a better you. And so, Jon, your best work yet. I absolutely love it. I appreciate and love you. And this one is going to sell more copies than any other. I can guarantee that.
Well, I appreciate it, Ben. You know, for me, I don't know how many copies it's going to sell, but I do hope that it impacts a lot of lives. So for me, if people get it at the library, I don't care. If you get it from a friend, I don't care. I just want you to read it. I want you to be impacted by it. As you said, I'm coaching people along the way with this book. Funny thing is, though, as you're talking about that, it's been crazy since writing it because I've had more conversations than ever with people of the one truth. And book 3, again, there's book 1, book 2, book 3. It's one book. And we say book 1, book 2, book 3. It's really section 1, section 2, section.
But I love how you did that, though.
Yeah. And section 3 is the solution to the separation. So once you understand that there's a separateness that's happening within you, and the key is to get back to oneness, in book 3, I share the solution to the separation. And I can't wait for people to read about the antenna, that your mind is actually an antenna. Your brain is an antenna. And once you read that, it's going to change everything. We're not going to talk about it now, but reading that is going to be really cool. And thanks for making that guarantee with people that, Ben, if they don't like it, you know, we'll refund their money.
No, not you. I will refund the money.
I will too, but I will as well. If they don't find it worthwhile, they don't find it helpful, I will too. And a guy came with me to my speaking engagement to a sports team. He'd only been to my positive leadership talks to businesses, and he saw me speak during training camp. He goes, "Oh, wow, there's a different Jon. There's training camp Jon, and there's leadership Jon. And you just run out the training camp Jon with coaching," which is funny because some people only hear my training camp, but they don't know, I give these talks on leadership.
That's right.
And culture, and really it's more of a teaching style with still inspiration, stories. But then there's training camp, which is like you are on fire and you got a couple of veins popping out of your neck, and it's a little different. And as you know, it's a different style because I know that you are mostly operating out of training camp Ben and firing people up. So he goes, yeah, there's training camp Jon. I'm like, yeah, there's 2 different Jons. But in this book, there's one, the training camp, there's the coaching, but then there's the understanding and the teaching that blends science, psychology, and also the understanding of biblical principles that actually are really important when understanding the one truth, not from a religious perspective at all, but understanding oneness and separateness. And once you see it, you won't be able to unsee it. So I can't wait for people to read about that as well.
Well, I can't wait for everybody to read it. Jon, thank you again for the continued impact you make on my life, the continued challenge, and continuing to write books and to not stop. You know, that's such an ultimate act of leadership, is you never being seduced by success or the last great book or I finally made it. You just keep pushing and bringing others along. And so I thank you so much. For everybody, share this episode. I don't ask that every single time. I do it on the most special episodes, and the impact Jon has had on my life and the impact this book is going to have on so many. Share this episode with somebody who needs to dive in now, which is then going to encourage them to buy the book, to dive in like they never have before to what it means to be their best. So, Jon, thank you so much for coming on The Burn.
Hey, thank you, Ben. We've come a long way from that interview in Chicago in a small little streaming room with just you and I and an audience that was reaching who knows where and how. It wasn't even a studio. It was like an old rundown apartment. And Ben, I did an interview. It was like my first real tour, perhaps. And Ben came with me. And that's how long we've known each other. And I don't even think you were doing a lot of speaking back then, Ben, or writing or anything like that.
Yeah.
And so it's a fun journey, Ben. I just sitting there going, what are we doing here? But let's just make the most of it. And now we're doing it on Ben's own show. This is cool. It's come a long way.
It's amazing. 15 years ago in Chicago, my first book. I had only been speaking for a couple of years.
That's right. You just started. Yeah, it was your first
book. It
book.
was the release of Training Camp, and it really is amazing, the journey, and the best is yet to come. Not just for you and I, but for everybody watching this episode and everybody that picks up the book, The One Truth. Jon, thanks for coming on The Burn.
Hey, thanks for The Burn, man.